So let's begin now properly. First picture I want to show you is this. Oh my goodness, this is a room that I really want to go to. So this is in the Villa Farnese, which is just outside of Rome, not to be confused with the Palazzo Farnese, which is in Rome. As this is Villa Farnese, built for and decorated for, of course, Alessandro Farnese, who was a huge patron of the arts, also a diplomat, and he also travelled a lot, an incredibly well-travelled man for that time. And so this room, he commissioned this room, and it basically is a fresco of the map of the entire known world in 1572. And the frescoes were painted by an artist that we don't really know. Well, I was going to say we don't know much about him. I should say he's not very famous. A guy called Giovanni de Vecchio. So like Old John, I guess. Old John. Painted by Old John in 1572, map of the entire known world. But the interesting thing for the purposes of this talk is this ceiling. You can just see a part of the ceiling there because this talk is about the origin of the constellation and of the star sign Pisces. So the ceiling in greater detail is here. I mean, oh my, I really want to go here. I mean, God, we're not going to get to this place for a while, are we? Poor Italy, still struggling a bit. So this is basically a fresco of intermingled all of the origins of all of the star signs. Pisces is quite difficult to see. It's two fishes joined together. So if you go to the left of me, you can see one sort of big fish sort of pretty much in the middle of the fresco, just to the left of me, and then it's joined. It's quite hard to see to a little fish. Let's bring it up more closely here. So you've got the big fish. How can I explain? So below me, I hope you're seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. So below me, you've got an image of somebody who's sort of turning his head and holding a staff. I don't know who that is. And then below, sort of below that person, but just to the left a little bit, you've got Capricorn, I think, that looks like a goat. And then almost in the middle, you've got a large fish joined by a cord to a smaller fish. So that is Pisces. So what's the deal with the fish? Why are they joined together? Who are they? What is the story of Pisces? Well, the story of Pisces, or the origin of Pisces, it's sort of a fairly consistent story. So I don't know whether you remember, but the story of Capricorn, there were a whole load of different theories and different mythologies and different aspects and, you know, blah, blah, blah. The story of Pisces is a bit more simple, but it also stems from this big old war called the Titanomachy. Brilliant word. And so we're going all the way back to pretty much the beginning of, I was going to say the beginning of time, definitely the beginning of Greek mythology. And so we're going back to Gaia, the Earth Mother, and to the origins of Zeus. Okay, now the Titanomachy came about, if you remember, when Zeus basically challenged Kronos. So told this story lots and lots of times. So Zeus was Kronos's son. Kronos had heard a prophecy that one of his children would overthrow him, and so he swallowed them all, only he didn't swallow Zeus because his wife Rhea tricked him, gave him a stone instead. And Zeus grew up to be a strapping young lad, and with some help from his friends, he concocted, or a potion was concocted for him to poison Kronos and make him vomit up his siblings. Of course, then what happened was that Kronos was overthrown by Zeus. But, you know, these things, they don't just happen easily, okay? So Kronos was overthrown by Zeus, but there was a big war, a 10-year war called the Titanomachy that came with this. We don't really know very much about the Titanomachy, particularly, other than, to begin with, Gaia, the Earth Mother, was absolutely on the side of the gods. So it was between the gods and the Titans, the gods being Zeus's clan and his siblings and so on, and the Titans, and I promise you this is relevant to Pisces, just bear with me, and the Titans, so like Kronos and all his mates, there weren't very many of them. So Kronos had basically pissed off Gaia, the Earth Mother, he was her son, by the way. But Gaia had other siblings, and Kronos, including some siblings that were more tricky, and so Kronos decided to hide them down in the bowels of the earth, and those more tricky ones were the Cyclops and the Hectoronomies or something like that. I'm saying it a little bit wrong. Anyway, monsters, essentially monsters. And so they were sent down to the underworld, essentially. And this really pissed Gaia off, because she's like, I love all my children equally. And Kronos, you promised that you wouldn't do that. And so she sided with the gods in the Titanomachy. Okay, so Zeus, then the gods prevailed, and you know, we know that Kronos was overthrown. Zeus became like king of the gods, god of the gods, reigning over everything, and from Mount Olympus. But then he makes another mistake, because what he does, Zeus imprisons the remaining Titans down in Tartarus, this underworld place. And guess what? So Gaia is on the side of Zeus and the gods. Then Zeus upsets her by imprisoning the rest of the Titans, because she's like, hang on a minute, that's not fair. And so she switches allegiances, essentially, and she decides that she really needs to punish Zeus. So Zeus is pretty powerful by this time, and the way that she decides that she can punish Zeus is by giving birth to another child, kind of specifically, and she sort of curates this. So specifically, this child is going to be monstrous and very powerful, and so she couples with Tartarus, the underworld. All a bit about because in those days, you know, they didn't have a lot of choice, and so, you know, roles were doubling up, and so people could also be places. So Gaia was the earth, and also kind of the Earth Mother, like a person, and Tartarus was the underworld, this really nasty place you never wanted to go to, but also a person. So they were able to have a child, and this child was Typhon. So are you keeping up with me? It's a bit confusing, but Typhon he's here depicted on this vase. So he is this creature on the right hand side who is having a thunderbolt thrown at him by Zeus. So this was a gift to Zeus to have thunderbolts basically at his disposal at any time. So he is the god, the king of the gods, but also god of thunderbolts and lightning. So Zeus is about to throw a thunderbolt at Typhon, who is on the right hand side, and you can see he's a pretty interesting character. So the torso of a man, he's got sort of snake legs, You can't see it here, but he's usually depicted with really long arms. He breathes fire. You know, it's not great, basically. Here he is again. This is... He doesn't look very scary in this one, I'm going to say that. So this is Typhon as depicted by a Czech artist who worked in London, very famous for his engravings like this, a guy called Wenceslas Holler. So this is 17th century. So you can see Typhon in the center here, but you can see again sort of the torso of a man and these snake legs and these very, very long arms, very wide reaching. He is also incredibly tall, and you can't see it from here, but he does breathe fire. Either side of him are some of his children, the harpies. So, you know, harpies, Typhon, monsters, it's not great. So Typhon is born, and by the way, Typhon is where we get the word typhoon from. So that's the origin of the word typhoon. So Typhon is born specifically to go and do damage, harm the gods. So specifically, this is Gaia's plan. And so he is embroiled in the myth of Capricorn, if you remember that, and he is embroiled in the myth of Pisces because he goes storming over to Mount Olympus one day, and with intent to wreak havoc, and most of the gods see him coming, and so most of the gods turn themselves into different animals, and they go off and they hide, and they're disguised, and they're safe. Venus and Cupid, on the other hand, don't hear him coming. They're having a lovely mother and son moment, walking along the side of the river, happily chatting away until rather too late they realise that Typhon is almost upon them, and so they do the only thing that they can, and they jump into the river, and they turn into fish. So the big fish is Venus and the little fish is Cupid, and the reason that they have this cord between them is because Venus very quickly fabricated that, because she is a goddess underwater, so that she wouldn't lose Cupid in this very new realm for them. Now they were sort of still floundering as fish. They weren't quite safe from the clutches of Typhus at this point, and so the legend goes that there were a couple of other fish that guide them away to safety, and in this way they were able to essentially not be killed by the monster Typhus. And so some people think that Pisces is Cupid and Venus, who have been thrown into the sky as a constellation, or put into the sky as a constellation. But I don't think that is right, because once you become a constellation, you're a constellation, and you can't really be doing things, even if you're a god or a goddess on Earth. And as we know, Venus and Cupid they've got a lot to say in terms of Greek mythology, so they definitely don't just disappear off up into the heavens, do they? So I think it's far more likely that it was the two fish that went to help Venus and Cupid that were then honoured by being thrust into the sky as this constellation. So that is the origin of Pisces. A bit convoluted, but this sort of Typhon, he keeps turning up everywhere and wreaking havoc. And he, by the way, I was going to say he got his comeuppance. I mean, poor thing. Maybe not poor thing, but he kind of had a happy life, really. But in the end, the gods just they got really cross with him, and they were like, okay, right, there's enough of this now, and so they just dumped a mountain on him. They're like, bam! But what do you do when, what happens if you just dump a mountain on somebody who can breathe fire? It becomes a volcano. So it's one of, it's a volcano. I can't actually remember which one, but There you go. Typhon is a volcano. Just to finish off here, I wanted to show you this image, which is Pisces. It's one of 176 stained glass windows in Chartres Cathedral. So the cathedral itself, it was built 1190, 1220, so 12th, 13th century. So most of the stained glass windows date from them, but I just thought that was absolutely, I think it's really beautiful. The cathedral actually has the largest collection of stained glass windows anywhere in, I was going to say in the world, probably only anywhere in Europe. Or the oldest, probably the oldest and the largest. Definitely the oldest, probably the largest. So yeah, beautiful, well worth a look. There you go. Pisces! Hello Pisces, my brother's a Pisces. I know a few Pisces actually. Let's turn comments on, let's turn those off. So there we go. Hello Holly, hello Mike, thank you for joining. Oh, Holly sent a request to be in my live video, I think. Yeah, I think you didn't mean that. I don't know how to turn that off. Things keep changing, never mind. That was arguably more about Typhon than it was about the origin of Pisces, but you know, since he's the cause of poor old Venus and Cupid having to jump ill-prepared into a river, I think it's fair to give him his say today. Oh, thank you, Aaron. Super interesting to learn about Typhon. Thank you. Good. Yeah, I mean, it does get a bit confusing, especially because Gaia keeps switching sides. What's she up to now? But, you know, she is a woman. And on that note, next week I've got another kind of International Women's Day thing. So I did one at the beginning of the month, and I'll do one next week as well about a very, very interesting artist, Sophonisba Anguissola, and yeah, a fascinating. It's going to be it's a fascinating painting that I've chosen. So I hope you'll join me next week. If you want to have a look, I am going to put this up on my blog on beyondthepalette.co.uk, so that'll be there. And yes, I don't know, there's lots going on. But yeah, I'm actually working at the moment on a series of videos for the Catholic Church again. I don't know whether you remember, I did it last year. They asked me to do it because I'd done a podcast with them about the art of dying well, a Memento Mori podcast, which is still apparently the most listened to podcast of 2020 on their website, The Art of Dying Well. So they asked me if I would do the other side of the Easter break. So in terms of the Catholic story, which I had to look up. I'm not Catholic, so that's quite interesting. So I'm working on that at the moment. But I will see you next week with Sophonisba Anguissola. Wonderful information that woke me up with lots of memories learning as a child, but much better with you teaching me. Oh, good. Thank you very much. I'm very pleased. Okay, have a great day, have a great weekend, and I will see you, I hope, next week. Thanks for joining, everyone. Bye.